Hello and welcome to As Built, the podcast from Graphic Machine about architecture firms, buildings, and how both get built. I'm your co-host, Patience Jones. With me is
Brian Jones,
your other co-host. Thank you for joining us. So today we are talking about big firms, and they're successful in a lot of ways, but one of the ways that they frequently struggle is differentiating themselves from other big firms. So, what have you noticed about how big firms present themselves or come across?
I think it's because many of them go across almost every sector that can be imagined. Many of them have the same departments. Many of them have the same descriptions of their about services. Many of them have the lofty mission statements. And so there's not a lot, because they have so many things that they need to talk about, that it kind of loses the edges and it just becomes this amorphous blob of everythingness, and that if you need it done, they can do it.
Well, and if you're large enough, you authentically and legitimately do all those things. Mm-hmm. So if you were to take the 5 largest architecture firms, my suspicion is that you would see that they all work in almost all the same verticals, whether or not they call them that. They all have offices in multiple places. They all have a sustainability commitment. They all say that they value their teams and their workers, and they want to make change through architecture. And they all have a lot of people. And okay, so if I'm prospect Y, how do I know which of the firms I should be looking at working with? The answers are different, which means these firms have to market differently. Because if you're a smaller firm, you may not be in every vertical. You may have a different approach to something that's super articulable. You may have qualifications on who you hire, like, well, everybody has this particular skill set, and that's how we're different. Larger firms, you don't have that. So how do you differentiate?
Well, I think that one of the key things to underscore is a little bit more of the problem first, which is that you're designing an office building, which isn't really a likely scenario right now, but let's say you are. And firm A has done 27 office buildings, and firm B has done 20 office buildings. Firm A is probably going to win no matter how amazing firm B's presentation is, because they've done more of them. And it's kind of like the price conundrum, but with quantities of a particular project type. So that's usually like the way in which, if you don't have a differentiator, that's what it's going to be down to, is like who's done more of this project at the end of the day.
The way, though, that there's an opportunity in there for firms, because yes, with no other information, the firm that did more projects will get it.
Yeah.
But there is an opportunity for more information. Oftentimes, the project will go to the firm that somebody has a relationship with, be it their kids go to the same school, or they're in the same networking group, or they went to school together, or they worked together on some other project years ago and that person was at a different firm, or they have seen that person writes frequently on LinkedIn about the exact type of project that they're looking to do. And those types of things can make the difference.
I mean, it's exactly right. I mean, you're saying essentially that the key to differentiation is the people inside the firm, not the firm itself, because it's words at the end of the day. And once there's so many things to talk about, it all starts to sound similar.
Well, and the way to sort of think about it is anathema to how you think about building your firm culture, which is you need to break it down into departments. So in this vertical, think of it as its own firm for purposes of awareness and getting your leadership out there. Does the person who runs that department or that vertical, do they have visibility? Do people recognize them as a leader in that area? Are they well equipped to talk about the work that they do? That will help you break it into smaller firms, then somebody's not hiring your big monolith firm. They are hiring this person in their team because they're the best at doing this, as demonstrated by fill in the blank.
And if you're a large firm who has historically not wanted to promote individuals inside the firm because of fears of poaching, fears of, them going off and launching their own practice, all legitimate concerns. But we live in a world where people are searching for things with great specificity, and they're not going to be investigating things the way that they did 20, 30, 40 years ago. And so the way that we talk about ourselves has to fundamentally shift because, like it or not, this has already happened. This isn't about something that's going to happen in 6 months. It's done. This has happened. So it's time to really shift the way that we talk about a large organization.
And the thing is, if somebody in a leadership position is planning to leave your firm, probably that has to do with any number of things, from personal to professional to long-term goals to health to whatever. It's probably going to happen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds so crass, but getting what you can out of that person until they leave, and also making it so that they're grateful for the opportunities and the visibility that you gave them so that maybe you can work together in the present, or they still refer clients to you.
Yep.
Or you're able to say, well, that person, used to be here and we have an entire team that trained under them. That's really, really valuable.
Another side benefit, which is often overlooked, but a super critical one to promoting the individuals within the firm to be more of the face of the company, is that large organizations can often feel really inauthentic in their presentations online because of their monolithic status and the way that they come across. So this is a way where, because it's human beings, they're more relatable because they're human beings. You begin to both trust and build a rapport and a relationship at scale in a way that you just can't anymore in the monolithic presentation of a large firm.
And people trust other people, even if they've never met them, way more than they trust corporate entities. And while you may not view your firm as corporate, when it gets to a certain size, that's how other people view it. So they will have the same hesitations about, are you going to understand them? Are you going to, yes, you're bringing all these people and you have a deep bench and you can work in any time zone and you have unlimited resources, and that's great. But there's also another component to it that you have to address, and this is a good way to do it.
I think it also gets into something that's so critical, which is that, we've seen this so many times with large firms where it's like the language is eloquent and conveys these really lofty ideals. And the reality is in talking to the firms, frequently that's really who they are. And what's sad is that gets lost because it gets written off as like, well, you're just writing really nice things and you don't really practice or act in this particular way. And you get over that hurdle by bringing the people forward so that you show it, don't say it, basically.
Yeah. Other people can understand and appreciate your passion, that you really do what you say, that you have this expertise when they are hearing from you directly. And video can be a great way to do that. I think there's also, I want to say, the negative differentiator that happens when you are a large firm. When you're a very large firm and you do very prominent projects, there's usually press about that. And people will infer by the projects that you take what you stand for. So if you say on your website that you stand for a certain set of values, and then you're taking projects that are really run headlong into those values, that's a way that you negatively differentiate yourself in ways that you probably didn't intend, But people will start to say, oh, this is a hypocritical firm. This firm is not.
And that's the thing too. Once you get to a certain scale, the amount of coverage that you're likely to receive increases exponentially because of your size. So like if you are operating under the assumption of like, well, this is happening in a remote part of the world, nobody's ever going to know. No.
They will.
It always,
They will.
Always. Yeah.
Yeah, they absolutely will.
So what are the takeaways?
So I think the takeaways are starting to think of your firm as mini firms, a bunch of mini firms or smaller firms, and thinking about how you promote the expertise of those smaller firms to those audiences and building more of a personal connection with your audiences to counterbalance whatever their preconceptions might be about what it's like to work with a larger firm and to show how you're different from other larger firms.
And a side bonus for that one is that you potentially engage all the age groups within the firm in this process. So you're actually building rapport, not only externally, but internally you're cultivating future leaders. So it's a win across the board.
Exactly.
I would say the only other takeaway I would have is that if you think that you don't have to do this or you're exempt as a large firm, that you've said everything that you need to say, and you're still finding yourself hitting these arguments where you run into a client situation and they can't differentiate you between you and other firms, then you haven't done the work. And it's just, it can be easy to say that at scale, at the size that you are, that you've done all the things that you need to do. And like, if you keep running into this, there's still more to do.
Yeah, the size of your firm is an accomplishment, but it is not necessarily an indicator that you are great at differentiating.
Yeah.
And if the only way people can differentiate you is, well, they have the most employees of any firm, then you're going to have to keep hiring all the time and acquiring and gobbling up. And maybe that's what you want. I don't know, that sounds like a nightmare, but it's not a great path. If people feel like they have to go to you because they don't have any other options, I mean, I guess you'll get clients, but it would be better if they came to you because they really valued this particular thing that they can get from you that they can't get from anyone else.
And barring the count of buildings being the only differentiator, it provides you a great tool and a great conversation starter for clients that might have gone elsewhere.
Exactly. So, yes, everybody has bills to pay, but understand that this is another way that you are sending a signal to people about what you're okay with as a firm.
And who you are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate who you are. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time.